If you keep going back, you're delaying your destiny. I'm going to say something that might hit a little hard, but if you actually hear it, it will change how you move. Every time you go back, you delay the life you say you want. Not destroy it, not lose it, delay it. And I know that's uncomfortable to hear because it feels like I'm trying, I'm doing the work. I don't want to go back. But if you're really honest with yourself, you'll see it. The moments where you go back into old patterns, say yes when you mean no, shrink when you should stand, stay when you know you've outgrown it. Not because you don't know better, but because something in you still feels safer there. And this isn't about blame. This isn't about shaming yourself. This is about awareness. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. But once you can't unsee it, you can't keep pretending you're stuck. You're choosing. Now, before we go deeper, let me ground you into what we do here. If you're new, hi, I'm Cherry. I'm a spiritual life coach, numerologist, and energy alchemist. And I help people who are done repeating the same patterns, done abandoning themselves, and ready to actually step into the life they say they want. We don't just talk about change here. We work at the level where change actually sticks. Your nervous system, your identity, your energetic patterns through the 10 energy bodies. Because you're not stuck. You're just used to choosing what feels familiar. And April is all about energy body 4, the neutral mind. The part of you that sees clearly, even when the truth is uncomfortable. So if something in you is already reacting to this, good. That means we're exactly where we need to be. And before we go deeper, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so more people can find this work. Because this is the space where you stop going back and start actually moving forward. All right, let's talk about what going back actually looks like and why it's costing you more than you realize. Now let's strip this back, because going back doesn't always look obvious. It's not always you making a huge dramatic decision. Most of the time, it's subtle, it's quiet, it's automatic. It's the moment where you feel something is off and you override it anyway. It's saying yes when your body already said no. It's over-explaining yourself when you know you don't need to. It's staying in conversations, situations, or dynamics that you've already outgrown. It's feeling the discomfort, and instead of honoring it, you soften it. You make it make sense. And this is where it really shows up. In relationships, where you lower your standards, ignore what you're feeling, adapt yourself to keep things smooth. Not because you don't see it, but because you don't want to disrupt it. In your work or business, where you undercharge, over-deliver, say yes when you're already stretched, because it feels safer to be needed than it does to be fully seen. In your everyday decisions, where you second guess what you already know, look for reassurance instead of trusting yourself. Delay decisions because they feel uncomfortable. And all of this comes down to one thing. You feel the truth and then you choose something else. Not because you don't know what's right, but because what's right feels unfamiliar. And what's familiar feels safer, even if it costs you. And this is the part that hits. You're not going back once. You're going back in small ways. Every single day. And those small moments, they compound. They reinforce the old identity. They keep you in the same cycles. They delay the version of your life that you say you want. Because your life doesn't change in big dramatic moments. It changes in these ones. The ones where you feel the pull. And you either follow it or you don't. And this is where the neutral mind becomes so important. Because instead of just moving automatically, you see it. This is the moment I usually go back. And that awareness, that's where everything starts to shift. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you can't pretend you don't have the choice anymore. And that's where the power is. Now, this is the part that people don't always want to look at. Because it's easier to say, I know better. I just need to do better. But if it was that simple, you would have already changed it. So let's tell the truth. You don't keep going back because you lack awareness. You keep going back because your body still feels safer there. And that's a very different conversation, because this isn't about discipline. It's not about willpower. And it's not about trying harder. It's about what your system recognizes as safe. If you spent years being the one who keeps the peace, the one who adapts, the one who overgives, the one who avoids discomfort, then those patterns aren't just behaviors. They're regulation strategies. They're how your body learns to feel safe. So when you're in a moment where you could choose differently, your mind might know what's right, but your body goes, this feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar gets translated as unsafe. So what do? You go back. Not because you want to, but because your system is trying to stabilize. And this is where people get stuck because they interpret that moment as, I'm not ready. I can't do this. I always mess this up. No, you're ready. Your system just hasn't learned how to feel safe in that new version of you yet. And that's the real work. Not forcing yourself to be different, but teaching your body that it's safe to be, safe to say no, hold your ground, not over-explain, not overgive, and not to go back. And that doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments, moments where you feel the pull. And instead of automatically following it, you pause, even for a second. And that second, that's where everything starts to change, because that's where you interrupt the pattern. And every time you interrupt it, you create space for something new. And this is where Energy Body 4, the neutral mind, comes in again. Because instead of judging yourself, instead of making it mean something about you, you observe it. This is the moment my system wants to go back. And instead of collapsing into it, you stay. And staying is what creates change. Now let's talk about the part most people avoid, the cost. Because going back doesn't feel like a big deal in the moment. It feels like it's just this one time. It's not that deep. I'll do it differently next time. But this isn't about one moment. It's about the pattern. Because every time you go back, you reinforce the version of you you've already outgrown. You strengthen the identity you're trying to move beyond. And that has consequences. Not dramatic consequences, subtle ones. You stay in situations longer than you should. You tolerate things that don't meet you. You delay decisions that would move your life forward. And over time, that builds into frustration, into resentment, into that feeling of, I know I'm meant for more. So why am I still here? And this is the part that hits. You're not stuck. You're just repeating the same choices, the same patterns, the same responses, and expecting your life to change. But your life doesn't change through intention. It changes through participation. And every time you go back, you participate in the version of your life that you say you don't want anymore. And that delays everything. It delays the relationships that would actually meet you, the opportunities that would actually expand you, the version of you that actually feels aligned. Not because they're not available to you, but because you're not fully available to them. And I know that might feel confronting, but it's also where your power is. Because if your life is shaped by what you keep participating in, then the moment you change that, everything starts to shift. And this is where Energy Body 4, the neutral mind, brings clarity again. Because instead of softening it, instead of justifying it, you see it. This choice is keeping me where I am. No drama, no judgment, just truth. And that truth is what creates movement. Because once you see the cost clearly, you stop pretending it's harmless. Now, this is where everything becomes real, because the pattern doesn't change when you're watching this. It changes in the moment where you feel the pull to go back. That moment where you're about to say yes when you mean no. You're about to soften when you should stand. You're about to over-explain, over-give, or over-adjust. That's the moment that matters. So we're going to practice what to do. Right there. Bring your awareness into your body. You don't need to close your eyes. Just notice your breath for a second. Now think of a situation where you usually go back, a moment where you know you override yourself. Let that come into your awareness and notice what your body does, because this is where the pattern starts. You might feel tension in your chest, a tightening in your stomach, a sense of urgency, a need to respond quickly. That's your system activating. And normally, this is where you react. But this time, we pause. Take a slow breath in and a long breath out. And I want you to ask yourself one question. What am I about to choose right now? Not what you should do, not what's expected. What you're about to choose. And then we bring the neutral mind. And then we bring in the neutral mind. We don't judge it. We don't rush it. We just see it clearly. Now place one hand on your body, if it helps ground you, and say internally, I don't need to go back. Let that land, because in this moment, you'll feel two directions. The familiar one, say yes, stay quiet, keep the peace, go back to what you know. And the unfamiliar one, pause, be honest, hold your boundary, choose something different. And I'm not going to lie to you. The unfamiliar one will feel uncomfortable. Uncomfortable doesn't mean wrong. It means new. So instead of trying to get it perfect, just do one thing differently. Maybe you don't respond straight away. Maybe you don't respond straight away. Maybe you say less. Maybe you don't explain yourself. Maybe you simply pause. That's enough. Take another breath and remind yourself, I can stay here. Because this is what holding the line looks like. Not being perfect, but not collapsing. And every time you do this, you teach your system something powerful. I don't need to go back to feel safe. And that's how the pattern breaks. Not all at once, but in moments like this. Now, this is a shift that changes everything. Because up until now, you might have seen going back as something that just happens. Something you fall into. Something you're trying to stop. But what we're doing here is different. We're turning this into a standard, a line, something you no longer negotiate with. Because the truth is, you don't need more awareness. You already see it. You don't need more clarity. You already feel it. What you need is a decision. And that decision is this. I don't go back to what I've outgrown. Feel that. Not, I'll try not to. Not, I hope I don't. Because identity is what holds your behavior in place. If your identity is, I'm someone who struggles with this, you'll keep struggling with it. But if your identity becomes, I don't go back to what I've outgrown, your behavior has to align with that. Not perfectly, but consistently. Because now when the moment comes, it's not, what should I do? It's, that's not who I am anymore. And that removes the negotiation. You don't sit there going back and forth. You don't overthink it. You don't justify it. You see it and you don't participate. And this is where people get it wrong. They think identity shifts happen when you feel ready. No, identity shifts happen when you decide and then reinforce it through action, through moments where you could go back and you don't, through moments where it would be easier to collapse and you hold yourself instead. And every time you do that, you strengthen the identity, not through words, through evidence. And over time, something powerful happens. Going back doesn't feel like an option anymore because it doesn't match who you are. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because you've outgrown it. And that's what power actually looks like. Not control, not perfection, clarity. Because once something is clear, you stop negotiating with it. Now just take a moment and really feel this. Every time you've gone back, it wasn't because you didn't know better. It wasn't because you weren't ready. It was because something in you still felt safer there. And now you see that. You see the moment. You see the pattern. You see the choice. And once you see it, you can't pretend you don't anymore. Because now every time it happens, there's going to be a moment, a small, quiet moment where you know this is where I either go back or I move forward. And that moment, that's where your life changes. Not in some big dramatic way, in that one decision, not to collapse, not to soften, not to override yourself, to stay. Because every time you stay, you stop delaying your life. You stop pushing your future further away. You stop reinforcing the version of you that you've already outgrown. And instead, you start becoming someone new, someone who doesn't go back, someone who doesn't abandon themselves, someone who sees clearly and moves accordingly. And that's the shift. Not becoming perfect, becoming unavailable for what no longer aligns. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I'm done going back, but I don't fully trust myself to hold that yet, because this isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about building the internal safety, identity, and nervous system capacity to actually follow through. So you don't just understand your patterns, you stop participating in them. And if you want to go even deeper, to understand why you've been choosing what you've been choosing and what your next level actually looks like, your numerology roadmap breakthrough session will give you that clarity. The link is in the description box below. And before we go, I want you to ask yourself one question. Where am I still choosing what's familiar over what I actually want? And this time, don't soften it. Just see it. Because the moment you stop softening it is the moment you stop choosing it. Stay close. Because your life isn't waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to stop going back. And that's where everything shifts. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.